It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talk Heathen. I am your host today, ObjectivelyDan, and joining me as my co-host is the inimitable, I think that's the word, right? Inimitable Jim Barrows. Jim Barrows is live with us here. Jim, what's going on?
Not much. Ready to talk to some callers and see if we can find evidence for God.
Yeah, I'm ready for that too.
Any of them. There's thousands. Pick one.
Exactly. In case this is your first time watching, Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have some open lines, so get your calls in now. It's 512-991-9242, or you can call from your computer at tiny.cc/callth. This is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion from government. So we will talk about some ways you can support this program. But, before we do that, I think we should talk to some callers. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we have one person who's been waiting for a little bit since the show started. This is Brittany calling in from North Carolina. Brittany, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Going pretty good. It's a nice day today, and happy to get the show started. So how can we help?
Okay, so my topic is why I believe in Jesus.
Okay. Yeah, go for it. We'd love to hear it.
Cool. So as a child, I always did believe that there was something else out there, just didn't know who or what. So, and I would talk to this something, and I would usually be outdoors looking up to the sky, and this to me was my way of praying. So, and I was probably around the age of, I don't know, like anywhere from 6 to 8, probably around 6, 7 years old. And I would pray to this God that if you're real, like, show me a sign. Let me know somehow for certain. Okay. Like, I need to see something. So years and years went by. And it's really interesting and funny, like, how this prayer was answered. So when I was around 10 or 11, I'm going to go with 11. I think that's how old I was. I went on a family vacation to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Virginia. And it was the first time I'd ever been there. One of the nights that we were there, I was sleeping in the living room. There was a couch, pull-out bed, sofa or whatever, and my mom was there with me. So we were sleeping on the bed in the living room, and in the middle of the night, I'll share a detail, and I've told others this, I know that they probably think I was hallucinating. But I know in my heart that's not what it was. I had been sick, and I was running a low fever. I didn't feel too good. But in the middle of the night, I was awakened. So I sat straight up. There was no noise. I didn't have to use the restroom. I just sat up and was awake. And I looked to my left, and there was this bright, glowing angel. It had, and I say it because I didn't get a clear picture of the face or like, I couldn't see his or her face. I don't know if it was male or female, but I know that it was very big, very bright, white gown, white feather wings, huge wings, everything white, everything bright, and right there on the left of the bed. So I'm in awe, in shock, just, looking like, oh my God. So I turned to wake my mom up because I want her to see too. I want her to, get this awesome sight. So
Sure.
I'm waking her up, and then I turn back, and of course, it's gone. So in that moment, though, that was the most incredible, I would say, peace and tranquility I have ever felt in my life. And, I've never forgotten that. And, it took me a while to kind of wonder, why did I see that? And then, thinking back, I have a really good memory. Thinking back, I was thinking, you know what? That was my sign. That was my answer from God to that prayer of me needing to see something. And I can't explain it. I can't tell you how that happened, but other than it was just God answering that prayer for me.
Okay.
And
Well,
there's other reasons why I believe too, but that's the main one.
okay. Well, Brittany, first of all, I want to appreciate you waiting on the line and telling us this story. So, we really like it when callers like give us their first line of reason, right? Like, this is what you've described as your primary reason. You had this personal experience that was very meaningful to you,
Right.
and so that was your reason for believing. So I really do appreciate that. And I would say when I was a Christian, my personal experiences, what I would describe with the divine, using that language at the time, were also the biggest reasons why I believed. But somebody asked me a question one time, and I thought it was really interesting, and I want to hear your answer to this question too. So this question was, if somebody who came from another religious faith, let's say it was maybe a Muslim, or it doesn't have to be anything real, it could be a made-up scenario, a made-up faith, came to me and described to me the exact same experiences that I had, right? And in this case, we'll substitute it with your own. So the exact same experiences that you had, maybe they saw a glowing being, and maybe they also prayed to a god before, and that convinced them of their God belief. Would that convince you? In other words, they're describing their experience, they're describing it to you. Are you any more convinced that their God is real? Would that be convincing to you?
I would totally believe that people see things, and I can't tell you that it's coming from a different God or the same God. I do not know.
Okay.
I don't know if they believe in Allah, whoever they believe, or who they pray to. Only they can answer that question. But I do believe in the supernatural world, and I do believe that there is one God out there.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you. Jim, if you want to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask a question myself.
Yeah.
Shouldn't if you saw an angel of God, shouldn't that be a biblically accurate angel of God?
What, biblically accurate? What do you mean by that?
Well, the Bible describes several creatures that one could call an angel, and almost none of them, as far as I'm aware, look like what you described.
I've heard that before myself. I have personally not read any of those parts of the Bible, whereas I haven't read many parts of the Bible, but I have read some. None of them describe what I saw, though. I will say that, I believe that God created the angel race, and I say, we're the human race. Before he created the humans, I believe he created the angels. I believe
which angels? So yeah, and many Christians do believe that there are angels, but my problem is that most of their descriptions fit what are more modern artist interpretations of them, and not actually the angels that are often described in the Bible itself. We don't see angels depicted as burning wheels. We don't see angels depicted as human-animal hybrids. We don't see We do see one. The Malachim are described as human, but they don't have wings. The seraphim are winged, but not humanoid. So, if you're going to describe these things, shouldn't it be accurate to the lore in which you believe?
I'm only describing accurately what I saw. I don't believe it says anywhere that I couldn't have seen what I saw. I don't think, but again, I have not read any of the Bible's descriptions of angels, so I'd have to read that for myself and see what it says. But either way, it doesn't change what I saw,
Well, so here's kind of my problem, and let me put with what you're saying, and that is that the most common description of aliens that we see, there was a wide variety of aliens up until the movie Close Encounters. And then everybody started seeing the exact same alien all over the place. So the big bug-eyed guys that are most commonly depicted as aliens today and are reported as being seen by people who've been in contact with them more closely resembles a very popular movie than previous images. And so once again, that kind of leads me to believe that what you saw was, in fact, something your mind was making up, and it was just going to what it had seen and before, and was not, in fact, real, because you were imagining, you're imagining something that's not in the Bible.
Also, I do believe that God takes into consideration my age, what would have frightened me, what would not have frightened me. God is in control of everything, the way I look at it. And I do believe he has control over what I saw. I believe he decided what it would look like to me. That was in God's decision making. So therefore, me being the age I was, I don't think God would have wanted me to see anything that would scare me. If it's from God, it's not going to be anything that's going to frighten me. So I believe he made sure that I saw what I saw the way I saw it and felt the way I felt when I saw it.
That, except that he's never done that for anybody else. So why you?
That's a wonderful question. I believe he just answered my prayer. I can't wait till the rapture, and I can ask him, personally, many questions, that being one of them. But deep down in my heart, I just believe it was an answer to my prayer, and it helps me solidify my faith today, and it's like rock solid.
Brittany, I want to ask an alternative line of questions here. I want to go back to the story that you told. So when you experienced this, you said whoa. There goes my microphone. Sorry about that, folks. When you were there, you said your mother was with you in the room with you there. Yeah. And you said that she see what you were seeing in that moment as well?
No, I don't believe she did at all. She doesn't have any recollection of that.
Okay.
She remembers me waking her up, but she didn't see anything.
Okay. So, I truly, as someone who did believe in God for a long time, I want to believe in God, if it's true, right? I want to believe in as many true things as possible. So if I hear your story and I want to know whether your personal experience was, evidence to your belief, if I hear that somebody else was there with you and they didn't see it, and then you also very candidly tell me that you were experiencing a low-grade fever at the time, there's a lot of people that have personal experiences either with aliens, with God, with demonic beings. I mean, we can tell all kinds of stories about, what we might experience. What do you think makes your story, if you were trying to convince me, and maybe this isn't your goal, right? Maybe this is just convincing to you, but do you think it would be convincing to anybody else who wouldn't have that personal experience?
I think a lot of people, if not all of the people that I have shared this with, just chop it up to the part of, she had a fever. She was probably hallucinating. She was a child. It could have been her imagination or this or that or the third. And the reason I share the fever part, I share as many details about that night that I can remember. It's like giving it a full disclosure. So
Yeah, that's
you
wonderful.
take that
That's
into
wonderful.
consideration and decide if it's true or not. That's your decision. But I'll tell you
Sure.
that everything I shared about it is exactly as it happened. And my goal isn't to my goal is just to share my testimony with others and to share the gospel with others, so they can take it or leave it. It's up
Sure.
to them. But it's
And
how
Brittany, I want to emphasize, I think it's wonderful that you're telling us this and that you were candid about that detail, because for other people, that might have been a detail that they want to hide, right? That they say, oh, well, this was actually going on in the background. So I'm really glad that you're willing to share that with us. But, coming from our perspective, right, Jim and I, we don't have a God belief anymore. And of course, we hear a lot of stories from people. So we're very skeptical, right? So we're always going to find, maybe there's potential problems with these kinds of stories. And I know I've had fevers. I know I've hallucinated things. And to me, that would seem like it's the most, I don't want to diminish your experience as not being meaningful to you, but it's hard for me to come to the conclusion that it's supernatural in origins. If we have a natural origins for something that we can point to, then that tends to be the explanation I'm going to go for first, right? And I think for any situation that comes to me, that's going to be the one that I would go to.
Right, because people who have hallucinations say the same thing you do, right? They say they know it wasn't a hallucination. Until you convince them that they do have a mind that hallucinates. But they still firmly believe that what they're seeing is true because that's what their mind is telling them. So the fact that you say it was true also doesn't really move the needle towards believability very much. And then when you start looking at, over the past 2,000 years, especially the last 1,000 years, and we start looking at explanations for various phenomena like disease and earthquakes and storms and tornadoes and all those things, we start coming, naturalistic explanations for all these things have proven true. And we have yet to find a single instance of a supernatural claim to be proven true. The best that we can see for any supernatural claim is we have something we can't explain, and that's not enough to convince anybody. So it's great that you had this experience and that you took it as something meaningful, but I'm still looking for some sort of evidence that will show me that what you experienced was true, wasn't a hallucination, and that the supernatural somehow or other actually exists. And you can look at the Bible and you say you haven't read it. I've read it twice. I would highly recommend you read it with a critical eye. And then go look at all of the evidence for the things that aren't in it or that are in it that are just factually impossible or incorrect. For instance, the flood. The flood could not have happened. There's just too many problems with it. Moses and the Exodus didn't happen. As far as we can tell from all the archaeological evidence, it didn't happen the way the Bible says it happened. There are a number of these things within that book that just kind of go, huh. And then we start looking at, we'll leave the New Testament out of it for a moment. There's some issues there too. But when we look at all of these things, I would, like Dan asked you earlier, if somebody else had the same experience, but it looked like their version of a popular angel and didn't look like their mythos' angel or experience, then would you really expect anybody to believe that God or angel actually existed? And I think the answer has to be no, we wouldn't take that as evidence. But, that's...
I hear what you're saying. And, there unfortunately are a lot of things that we can't explain as Christians, I think it comes down to having faith. And I also know one thing for certain, and that is the fact that we all have an expiration date. We all are going to perish and die one day. And on that day, I know time takes time and only time will tell, but that is the truth. When we all die, we all will find out the truth of the matter, whether we were right or whether we were wrong in what we believe.
Let me ask you.
I stand firm where I stand.
Sure. I want to ask you, that word faith that you use, can you tell me, how do you define that word faith?
For me, faith is assurance of things unseen. You know, it's something that I don't have to see it, but I believe it. It's a faith in my heart. It's like something my heart can see and know, but the eyes cannot.
Yeah, I'm glad you used that Hebrews 11 verse, assurance of things unseen, because that's exactly like what I would use to describe.
Right.
Actually, there's a video of me describing, you know, what my version of faith was, and I'm practically not quite directly quoting it as you are, but yeah, I agree with you. Like when I was a Christian, like it was assurance of things unseen. So my question is, do you use that metric, having the assurance of things unseen? Do you use it for other things in your life? And if so, what kind of things do you use it for?
I would say no. The faith that what I use when I use faith, it pertains only to like the religion, the God subject. I mean, in Jesus, I have to have that. That is vital. That is necessary.
Well, here's my follow-up then. Here's my follow-up then, right? So why God exclusively? Why does God get special domain when it comes to trust or assurance and things unseen?
Because if it wasn't for God, I would not exist. If it wasn't for God, I would have nothing. I wouldn't be here. I don't think anybody would or anything would. We owe everything to God, in my opinion.
But if you know, Brittany, if I said I need to borrow your car for something, and like you know, you haven't talked to me before today, right? So like I'm assuming you'd be skeptical of that, right? And I said, well, you have to have, you know, assurance in me unseen. Like you wouldn't consider that reasonable, I assume, right? Like we don't typically give that trust out too easily. Yeah. So like, you know, there's a car but me. Yeah, but like there's a lot of God beliefs out there, right? Like I think you and I can both agree a belief in Jesus, a belief in Yahweh isn't the only one. So why put all of our eggs in one basket for this one belief when there could be other beliefs that we're missing out?
Because Christianity has something that no other religion has. I don't think any other deity or being has died, been buried, and resurrected and beat the power of death. Death could not hold Jesus.
Have you heard of dying and rising? I'm sorry. Have you heard of dying and rising gods?
I have not, except for Jesus. And the thing is,
there's multiple. He's not unique.
Through him. He is the way.
He's not unique. Right, he's not unique. That's the problem, Brittany. That is actually not unique.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
It's not that I feel that way. It's just I've studied other religions. I've made a study of other religions, and they're not that. And there is nothing all that unusual in the Bible when it comes to who that God is and who Jesus is. There are a lot of candidates that you can make that for.
You know, I haven't studied other religions such as you have, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with educating yourself, you know, things like that. I feel like I have found the only truth that there is, you know, and others disagree wholeheartedly, and that's okay. But
how can it be? How can it be the single source of truth if you have over 1,000 different denominations, all of who disagree with each other on fundamental points of your belief? How can it be true?
Well, denominations go back and forth over doctrines and things like that, and they have their own
dogma and things. Yes. So how can that be true if they don't agree on fundamentals?
Well, I guess Jesus will have to straighten that out one day. I believe every right will be made wrong. I believe a lot of people have.
Why not do it now?
On certain things. They, you know, interpretation.
Right.
The Bible is misinterpreted quite often. You know.
Well, here's the problem that you have when you say that the Bible. So let me interrupt real quick. When you say the Bible's been misinterpreted, here's the problem. This is one thing that I really wish Christians could give me. Tell me the absolute one way to interpret the Bible, because there isn't one. There is no methodology you can use to actually get everybody to agree on an interpretation of the Bible.
The best
Now,
thing I can
every
say
other
to that is to ask God to impart knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
everybody says that. Every religion, right. And here's the problem with that. Every single preacher, a person who reads the Bible and interprets it and is a Christian, all do the same things. They read it, they pray. Some of them go and add exegesis and what's the other one I'm looking for? They all do the same things.
For others, we can only speak for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, Brittany,
if it's true, shouldn't it be true for everybody and not just one person?
Well, I think there's only one truth, and I think that people disagree. And I can't tell you why they all disagree, but I can tell you that one day we will find out what that truth is. I don't have all the answers. I'm not God. God's thinking is beyond and higher than my thinking. I'll tell you that.
We have to take some other callers now.
Right.
But, Brittany, I want to emphasize, we really do appreciate you calling in and sharing your testimony with us. And we appreciate that you discuss with us. We would love to talk to you again in the future. I think the takeaway that I would impart from this conversation is we want to talk about like how we can best believe in true things, right? The method for believing in things. And you cited your primary reason, and you did mention you had other reasons, but your biggest reason was this personal experience. And I would love to hear more on your thoughts on the reliability of personal experience and how we can impart that to others. Because I think for my case, right, Jim has some other objections he's brought up, but for me, the unreliability of personal testimony is the biggest barrier to entry for me, right? Unless I have my own testimony to share. And even then that can be, not great as far as what we can examine. It's going to be hard for me to be convinced, but maybe that wasn't what you wanted to do today. Maybe you just wanted to share your story. And if that's the case, I appreciate it either way, but thanks so much, Brittany, for calling in. I hope we can hear from you again. And that's a wrap with that call, but Jim, any final thoughts there?
Yeah, I think personal testimony, eyewitness testimony is some of the most unreliable testimony we have. There are a wide variety of things that go into that. But yeah, I mean, we have a hard enough time sometimes figuring out what is real and what isn't. And then we have a tendency to anthropomorphize everything and assume intent when there is none. The mountain tried to kill me. Some of us are joking and aren't quite serious. And sometimes it's just the easiest explanation, although they're not the most technical explanation for what was going on. But eyewitness testimony, not going to do it for me without some corroborating evidence. Especially for the supernatural, which we have no good evidence for.
Yeah. So. This call, I love callers like Brittany because they're so candid in their beliefs with us. And they just remind me a lot of myself when I was a Christian. If you notice, one of the things she said was, well, we're all going to figure out by the end, right? By the time that we die, we're going to have some truth with us. That's exactly the reasoning I used. And it's this idea that, well, we may be wrong about some things, but I have this bet going on. And this bet is if I keep with God, it's literally Pascal's wager, right? If my wager is, if I'm on the side of Christianity, then I'm going to be okay because there's going to be some sort of heaven I go to because I'm going to follow some sort of moral prerogative. It's just really interesting to hear that. But it's also, I really like the fact that she said, yeah, this other person was there and I had a fever and they didn't see anything.
Right.
That's so candid. That is so candid.
And that's exactly what we need more of. So
yeah, no, I really did appreciate that. But personal testimony, it's not enough for me. It's not enough for Jim. If it was on YouTube and we could watch that, then we could analyze it. But even then, that's not the best, right? So anyway.
No, not at all.
We have a couple different ways you can support Talk Heathen and the ACA, and one of them is to support us on Patreon. So that Patreon link is tiny.cc/PatreonTH, and it's a really awesome way to support the show. We give shout outs to the top donors on Patreon, so you should definitely check that out if you haven't already. Please like and subscribe to the channel as well. We would love for you to do that. And to become a member, you can click the join button on the video below, and you're going to get custom chat emojis if you do that. And you're going to help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the atheist community of Austin if you do that. So please check that out if you have not already. We appreciate all the support that we can get. So we got some other callers now who want to talk to us. Oh man, some fun ones. We're going to talk to Grant now. Grant, who's calling in from Canada. Grant, you're live on Truth Wanted. It's not Truth Wanted. Oh my God, it's Talk Heathen. I did it. I did the thing. I did the wrong show. Oh no. Yeah. Oh no. Anyway,
you're just sneakily advertising your own show.
I did it. Took long enough. Grant, how are you doing?
How's it going, fellas? Good.
Doing good.
So, what exactly is the topic today? You want to? I want to prove to you that the Bible is true. Is that the kind of the genre?
Yeah, that's we love calls like that. Please try to tell us how the Bible is true. And what do you mean by the Bible? I'm assuming you mean like the Protestant Bible. Do you have a specific version?
Well, the King James 1611 is the way to go.
Okay.
However, if you look at all the other Bibles, they're just versions of the 1611. And what's important about the Bible to understand it so that you can see that it's true is that it's the words that you are looking at are two different. Every word has many versions, right?
Yes.
Or context. So so there's the vulgar version and the proper version. And we are reading the Bible in the vulgar version. If we were to read it in the proper version, you would understand that the Bible is all about his last will and testament. And so he gave us all the land of earth and all the creepy crawly things and the resources of the land. And so basically that's a right. And so, because that's a birthright, he gave that to all us humans. So, in order to have a birthright, you have to have a title. So, what's our title?
Can you get to the evidence?
Yeah.
Can you get to the evidence?
Well, I'm about to tell you right now. The evidence of God's birthright is your given name and your last name. Well, your given name is your title to freedom.
Wait a minute.
That's what.
What about? Wait. So there are societies where there's no given and family name, right? Where there's only a given name and no family name. You know, there are societies where there is a given name and it's not a family name, but sometimes it's a. In some parts of the society, it is their job name. Or something else, but it is not necessarily a given and a family name. You know, there are societies like that on this planet, right?
Where?
Early pre-modern Japan. Anybody whose last name
Jesus
is Smith.
A last name either, right? Like the characters in the Bible themselves did not have two names.
Well, that all changed. Okay, so if you read in the Bible, for instance, Israel, Jacob wrestled with God, and then when he was wrestling with him, he changed his name. So what?
That doesn't change my point. There's still other people in the Bible that don't have last names. Eve. Cain, yeah, there's lots of other people in the Bible that don't have, and look, the Bible isn't the only book that contains history. I will admit it does contain some history, right? But there's older records of history besides the Bible, and they contain the names of people, and a lot of them don't have last names.
Well, no, they didn't have last names. That's right. They had their first name. And they were called, for instance, the Queen of England. Her name is Elizabeth Mary of the House of Windsor. Right?
Okay.
So, people.
Right,
that
but
are
there's also mononyms too. Like people, you know what a mononym is? It's just a single name. Like there's people in societies that have single names.
Right. And some of those single names are things like Thor, Odin's son. I kind of sort of made that one up off of that. But, you know, Norse societies, it was your first name and then who you were the son or the daughter of. No real last name. Sometimes they added a place name like the village they were from and things like that, and things that they were known for. The Japanese have, not only do the Japanese, especially the lower classes, have single names, if I'm remembering correctly, but they would also change their name based on various events in their life. They would change their entire name. So their family name wasn't even their family anymore. So I don't see how this is evidence of anything.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
Based on the Roman nomenclature. And your first name, if you look up the fundamentals of the nomenclature, like
Are you?
I'm
sorry, Grant. Could you address
Grant,
my comments about
Grant? Let people have first and last names, so they have first names and given names. What does that have to do with the Bible being true at all? Seriously, what does that have to do with anything?
It has to do with those are your titles of your right to what God's promised to you.
What do you mean? What does that mean, Grant? I don't understand. Because we have first and last names, therefore the Bible, that doesn't follow. No, you're talking about You're talking about birthrights. You're talking about God granting things. This conversation started with the Bible.
The Bible is all about your birthrights throughout every.
There's some stories. But I don't know if every
But
story is about birthrights. I don't think Habakkuk is about birthrights. Like I don't think yeah, there's some Old Testament stories involving birthrights if you're talking about the sons of Jacob and stuff like that. But like I don't know if I follow this. This is weird.
Yeah. So people whose name are Smith are given smithies. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Well, no, like I can if you go into heraldry, if you look at a family crest, there's certain symbols in there. Those symbols,
not everybody has a.
Well, they're all different little symbols.
You know nothing about heraldry.
I think you're looking at you have a very Western-centric version of the world, my friend. Because, like, again, yeah, we have a tradition from.
No, here's the problem: the heraldry was not given to us by any royal family or anything. That heraldry comes down from the Bible. I can show
what?
Wow.
What hair?
My last name descends from the tribe of Asher, which is the son.
Are you saying every person's last name comes from the Bible or comes from like?
Well, we all come down from Noah, right?
So every person's last name comes from Noah?
Yeah. Well, they're the three tribes of Ham and Japheth and Shem. Right?
So
I'm claiming I come down through the tribe
the
of Shem,
Aboriginals peoples,
Semitic people.
Oh my God! Whoa! This is. Man, okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you, Grant, but I think
you would. I know everybody has a problem with this because they don't truly understand.
Yes, because we have a problem with it because it's wrong. Literally, I think you need to have conversations less with call-in show hosts and more with anthropologists, Grant. I think this is a very Western-centric version of the world. I think this is an incredibly ignorant version of events of human history.
Yeah. So first of all, not everybody
does not revolve around the Bible and the stories therein with it. Okay.
Right.
There's lots of people with different cultures and faiths, but also their own histories, and you've single-handedly erased it with a single stroke by coming up with this story that you've concocted that isn't backed up by anything. This is just your opinion. Let's be honest. Where is this coming from? The Bible doesn't talk about this. The Bible has stories of birthrights. It does not say our last names come from yada, yada, whatever. Jim and I have both read the Bible. Okay, we're not fools. You can't just tell us this. This is really aggravating. I'll be honest, Grant. This isn't a good look.
This is just wrong on so many levels, Grant. First of all, Noah the flood just could not have happened. And we'll just leave it with the heat problem, which is something that Answers in Genesis agrees they have a problem and can't explain yet. And the heat problem is that no matter how you work the flood, you generate so much heat that you would destroy the planet. That's the first problem with the flood. We can pretty much leave it out as anything that actually happened. Second of all, if you want to say everybody comes back from those three lines, then you've got to realize also that where does I just Google Japanese last names for the giggles of it. Where does Takahashi come from? And how do you trace that back to anything in the Bible, given that this is, Japan? You just can't substantiate these claims that you're making at all with these last names, because like I asked, does that mean they get Smithies? There's an awful lot of Smiths. What about Johnson? Johnson is literally the son of John. So what do they get? And then you got the Norse, who also do the son of, daughter of thing as well. And some of those people have kept their last name through multiple generations. So they're no longer the son of that. They may be the great son of that person, but they've kept those names. And what about people with place names, right? Who took, Joseph of Arimathea is a place name. It's a Joseph of some place. So what do you do with those names? And then people just kept the name of the town they were from, and when they moved away because it was easier. When it comes to names, you've got so much research to do to find out that you aren't even wrong, because you can't possibly be anywhere near the galaxy of being right. I'm sorry. It doesn't work. Really do some more research and get out of the Bible. Yeah. Get completely out of the Bible for this, because that's where you need to go.
Yep. So we've given quite a lot of thoughts on this, Grant. Any rebuttal here? Because otherwise we're going to have to move on.
Honestly, you guys haven't learned anything from the Bible.
You know what, Grant? I don't think you've learned anything from history class. I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there.
Learned anything?
I haven't learned anything from the Bible. Well, I certainly haven't learned that my last name descends from Noah, a guy who didn't have a last name, funnily enough.
Right.
But hey, whatever, right? Well, we're the ignorant ones here, Jim.
When you're a fictional character, you don't need a first name, right?
Yeah.
Or last name.
Not only is this a whitewashing of history, but it's also just a sad look at the world. I mean, you have completely closed yourself off from entire civilizations, right? When you have a view like that, because you've chosen to put your blinders on and look at this one book as the detailed record of everything you need to know from history. And how boring is that? Right. Yeah. How boring is that? And the King James nonsense. I already knew we were going to go down.
Yeah, we were already in trouble when he said King James, the worst translated book, translated version of the Bible there is. The worst.
Yeah. Well, Anyway, with that out of the way, I want to talk about other ways to support the show. Below the live chat, we have a fundraiser. Okay, 100% of the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not take a cent of any of that. So check that out. No charge fees on YouTube's end. If you want to support the ACA, definitely click on that if you are interested. And we also have a channel that houses all of the shows on the ACA in audio podcast form. You can visit that. It's tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. Okay. So definitely look at that if you haven't already. And you can also become part of the Talk Heathen community in our Facebook page. The Facebook page for that is tiny.cc/FBTHG. A lot of letters there. I had to make sure I got it all right. So anyway, a couple other different ways to support the show. We appreciate any support you guys throw our way. And with that, I am looking at our next call. Okay. We've got a couple different people. Let's talk to Xeno, who's calling in from South Korea. I don't know if I've talked to anybody from South Korea on any of the shows. Xeno, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up? I did it again. God damn it. It's Talk Heathen, guys. Holy shit. I am not doing a great job. What's up, Xeno?
Wait, what did you do just now?
I have another show that I host called Truth Wanted, And I said that, but this is Talk Heathen, so that's my mistake. Yep.
See, hey, there's the first error right there. So, I want to talk about ontology, and
Okay.
I wanted to ask you guys, can both of you define ontology right now for me?
Ontology is the study of the nature of being. Is the best way to put it.
Would you agree with that, Jim?
Yep.
Okay, so the question is, what do you actually know about ontology? Have you been able to study it thoroughly? Just a question for both of you.
Oh man, well, you can look at Thomas Aquinas if you want to get like the beginnings of like Christian ontology, and even some people before that. There's people in the Western world that have. I mean, it really goes back to the Greeks if you want to talk about like Socrates and stuff, and Plato, and you could argue that the theory of forms, is kind of an ontology of the world. I mean, there's different points in history you can look at. I mean, what do you want us to look at specifically?
So I guess where I'm getting at is, I guess I should go on and define what I believe God is.
Okay.
It's not the bearded man in the sky. I just believe that it's a higher life force that created us, and I'm not in no way, shape, or form saying that it's omnipotent or anything. So my God is like very different from everyone else's, I feel. It doesn't come from any book or any religion. It's just what I believe as a programmer, because I create myself. So I had this wild idea that I'm basically the God of all the programs that I make, because it's coming from me. And before me, there's like this black space in time where it's not created yet until I touch it. So am I crazy to believe that? What are your thoughts?
As a software engineer,
where I'm going?
Yes. As a software engineer myself, yeah, that makes no sense to me. One of my biggest problems with ontological arguments for a God, any God, is what's the difference between talking about the ontology of God and talking about the ontology of Mighty Mouse? Honestly, neither one can prove that the other. You can't talk about the ontology of Mighty Mouse and prove that Mighty Mouse actually exists in anything other than a cartoon.
What if? All right. So what if we reduce that to absurdity? So I want you to ask yourself, Mighty Mouse is a character you just threw out into thin air. The God character that I'm talking about, we could study that. We can look at our lives. We can look at the space around us and see that nothing around you comes from nothing. Everything seems to have a cause.
Whoa.
Wait,
There's a claim there. You just snuck in a claim you need to prove.
even if that was true, you can't have something from nothing. That has nothing in and of itself to do with the God claim.
That's not the claim. That's not the claim he needs to prove. He needs to prove that nothing exists.
I misspoke there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I misspoke there. I didn't mean to say everything in this world comes from something. I meant to say, can you look around you in the space, the restricted space that we can look at? Isn't everything in your space, doesn't that come from something?
So again, when we say something comes from something, what we typically mean when we're describing that in the real world around us is we're seeing different states of matter transform into other states of matter, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So let me put it this way, and then I can yield my time. So I think you're on board with what I'm saying. This is where I'm going. Is it possible that there is a higher life form? Let's just take out the term God. Maybe let's just replace that with alien. Is it possible that there's a larger being that can potentially create space and time and matter?
I have no idea.
So this is what I just heard. This is the equivalent of what I just heard, right? Is it possible that pigs could come flying out my lily white backside? It's the same. No. It's the same thing when you talk about possible. Now, if you ask me, is it probable? That's a different question.
Yeah.
But when it comes to possible, we really got to narrow it down. Possible just opens it way up.
Yep.
So is it probable? I don't know.
Okay. So here's the question: as a creator,
I don't even know how to calculate it. I don't even know how to calculate that probability.
Yeah, it's true.
Here's how you quantify. I'm a numbers guy. I invest in stocks, cryptos, and NFTs. I want to tell you something about numbers. You can actually quantify with the things we do in everyday life. Humans create, animals create, but humans, we're the most intelligent life form so far. We create autonomous DAOs. I don't know if you know what a DAO is. It's a decentralized autonomous organization. We create all types of programs. Now, wouldn't it be a bit self-centered to think that you are the only life form that is able to create on a higher level? So when you're asking, how would we know it's possible? Well, we have to go into analytics.
I'm not asking if it's possible. I'm asking if it's probable, and to tell me how to calculate that probability.
Xeno, here's the thing. It's not that we're not open to there being a creator entity, right? Like, it's not that we're completely closed off to that. We just don't have any particular reason to believe so, right? And citing an argument from incredulity, which is saying, oh, well, wouldn't it be just so unlikely for us to be the only ones? Well, one, we have no idea to really calculate that, as Jim has pointed out. But also, like, that doesn't tell us anything. Doesn't tell us anything about God. Doesn't tell us anything about creative forces in the universe. All we know is that we're humans and we create stuff. That's it. That's all you could really get from that.
I don't believe that. As an innovator and creator myself, I think there's a distinctive way we think about the world versus non-creators. So the thing is, with creation, you're looking for something that you don't have evidence of. So let's just take an example. If you're on an island and you set out to sea, you go into the tavern and you say you're going on a boat and you're going out for this island, and they say, bullshit, mate, there's nothing out there. You're just wasting your time. Well, the thing is, you have no evidence to believe that there's anything else outside that island.
That's actually not true. That's not true. It's not true, because we know that land exists. We know that continents can form. I mean, we know this now because of modern geology and stuff, right? But even back then, there was still a precedent. Even back then, there was still a precedent, you know, because they lived on places and they knew islands existed. So there was the possibility of other islands. We have no idea. We have no idea for the existence of a creator entity. We have no idea. We cannot calculate that. There's no probability there. Anyway.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Dan just said, but let me take another tack on this. So what you're talking about, and just keeping it to the thought experiment that you delineated, and we're going to leave out things like bird migration patterns. We can leave out a whole bunch of other things that in reality would tell us that there were other islands out there. And the people who would live on that island, and assuming you're a primitive people, might be much more aware of than we are. We're going to leave all that aside and just leave it to the thought experiment that you have. What you have is somebody going into a bar saying, hey, I think there's other islands out there. I'm going to go find out. And how do you go find out? You sail. If you never come back, that doesn't mean there aren't islands out there. It just means that somebody didn't come back. You can't even say they died on the way. If they live past the expected age, you can say they died eventually, but you can't say they even died from the trip. But what you're talking about fundamentally is what we're asking. Where is the trip to go find the other islands? Right? That's what we're asking. And that's what you're not giving us.
So we would have to leave the Earth. What I'm saying is we haven't left our island. We haven't left it. So I started the conversation asking you about ontology and how much do you think you know about it?
Right. And we've answered your questions. We said one, I have agreed that it's possible, but when we're talking about possibility, the possibility of a higher life form, as you put it, to me is the exact same thing as saying it's possible for pigs to come flying out of my lily white backside. What I'm interested in for evidence is not the possibility, let me finish, is not the possibility, but the probability. And how do you calculate that? And that's because anything is possible. You've got to show me what's probable. You got to give me some way. And when I ask for a calculation, it could be a fuzzy calculation. You could say it's a high probability or a low probability. You don't have to put a number on it for me, but tell me how you calculate that probability.
Well, you said not to put a number on it, but you're going to have to use math. You're just going to have to, because you have to base this off of the reality that we already live in. If you ask yourself, what's the probability?
What's the math?
What's
the math?
What's the math? You'll say, I don't know. Can I? Wait. I got you on the math. So the thing is, everything's possible, you said, but to different percentages. So we have to work out what is the percentage that there is this life form. It's not the same percentage as the pigs with the wings, because pigs with wings, there is no foundation for that.
I've already agreed to this.
Creation, though. Okay,
I've already agreed to this. What is the math?
Xeno, math is based off math is a description of our reality, right? The probability of things happening in our world. You're talking about something that's literally outside of our reality, right? The thing that has to create reality itself. How do you calculate that within the bounds? That's like if you're playing The Sims and the Sims have to do the calculations of how they know that real people are creating them. I mean, I don't know if they can even do that, right?
Well, here's the thing. You just said something great there. So you use The Sims. Let's use a game. I don't think life is a program, by the way. But let's use a game. So in this game, you're asking yourself, what is the chance? What are the chances that there's a life form similar to myself, but not 100%, just like me? What are the chances? So that's going to be the numbers you're going to start plugging in to understand that, well, you're on a small rock. Let's reduce this to absurdity. You're on a rock. We have a telescope that can see plenty of galaxies. What are the chances that there is something out there that's like yourself? Those are the numbers you plug in. But I'm going to yield my time. I just got 2 questions for you before I go. Do you guys believe in aliens?
I think they're possible. I don't know that I know for a fact that they exist.
There is some non-zero chance that they exist. Yes, there is a non-zero chance that they exist.
So your percentages on that is very low. You don't think there's a high chance of that?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know what the percentage is. It's just non-zero.
While we know a lot about the history of our galaxy and the history of the universe, there's still parameters about how life formed on Earth that we don't know about, and therefore can't properly calculate the chances of life occurring on other planets.
Right. We can calculate the odds of our kind of life.
I see. So I guess the problem with you two and why it's going to be hard for you to understand is because you're not calculating in math. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. Well, to quote the dude, that's just like your opinion, man. Like, I don't know. NASA has done a lot of calculations on life on other planets, and even they are not sure. Okay. Right. But even then, like, we went from like talking about a creator to talking about aliens. Those are not the same thing. Right. I don't know why
life form is not the same thing.
Yeah.
And aliens would be the equivalent of us, not higher life forms. Maybe they're capable. Maybe they have enough understanding of science to create life. Maybe they don't. I don't know. These are all things that would have to go into the calculation. But for someone who wanted to do a lot of math, he didn't give us any math. He didn't give us
zero
what
math.
The variables are.
He didn't give us any numbers or variables. No. And also, again, we were open. I think we both said, yes, we are open to the possibility of aliens and a creator. Like, we're not completely closed off to that.
Right. If you want to make it, yeah.
The possibility wasn't off the table. It was the probability. Again, we go back to this over and over again. If you're so sure that it's the most probable explanation, I would love to hear why, but I don't think we heard why. I think we heard a lot of assurances of, oh, this is it. This is why you should. But anyway, we have to get to a promo that we have to show you guys. So go ahead and check this out.
I mean, there is nothing about anything else that we have done as a state in terms of the way we finance things, in terms of the way we legislate. It would make you think that we give a flying about taking care of kids broadly.
Talking about Christianity in terms of like, well, I can pick through this and try to find the nicest things about it. The way we say it where I come from is you pick through the turd to try to find a bit of corn.
What if we could take some fetal cell tissue and mix it in water and then create a big circle around the nation's capital, and that way no Christian nationalists can cross that line and get near the capital because they'd have to cross a barrier of fetal tissue?
So the experts in multiple fields of medicine, we've got the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Family Physicians, similarly, the organizations for adolescent and child psychiatry and for general psychiatry, they have been saying this for a while, that the best, most up-to-date standard of care for trans kids is to support their transition.
Well, I have experience with demons.
with the Spirit.
Okay. How do you demonstrate to me what those laws are? How can I tell the difference between whether or not what you say is true or whether you're just making up?
Woohoo! Love promos. Always a fun time.
I love Forrest.
Forrest Valkai was a fantastic guest. Definitely check out that episode of Truth Wanted if you haven't already.
He's on with me later in the month.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is coming back. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, so
yeah, he's going to be with me on AXP coming up soon.
Yeah. So check that out too if you're interested in Forrest. He's a cool guy. So before we move on, I have to thank the top 5 patrons for Talk Heathen. Okay, so these top 5 patrons are gonna be Eric Tweet, Dingleberry Jackson, Balaam's Donkey, Ayame, and Dan Conger. An honorable mention goes to Marcy Marino. So thank you all for donating to Talk Heathen. You guys rock and are very cool. And this show is supported by folks on Patreon. So if you're interested in supporting the show, Patreon is a great way to do it. tiny.cc/PatreonTH. You guys are very, very, very cool. We have some more callers that want to talk to us. Jim, you got the call-in show studio? You got the studio open? What do you think? I'll let you pick. Jim. Who you want to talk to? We got a lot of people who want to talk to us, which is cool.
Yeah.
Want to talk to Jack? Want to talk to Dave?
You know what? Let's do Stan.
Dan? There's no
Stan.
Dan. Oh, Stan. There's no Stan either. Where do you see Stan?
Oh,
there it is. Respectively, Stan. What? Respectively, Stan? Are you jacking my style? Because I'm objectively Dan, and you're respectively Stan, and I think there's some mischief at play here. What is this?
Well, first, thank you for having me on Truth Wanted. No, but really,
this is. I get it. Very funny. This is Talk Heathen today, folks. It's Talk Heathen, not Truth Wanted. All right, I see the chat saying it every time. It's Talk Heathen. Okay.
Right. No, but really, so first, just let me say, I want to thank you guys and the work you guys do, the whole ACA. I come from a very religious, even though I'm in California, I come from an extremely religious family. And when I deconverted in my late 20s, I didn't understand how to think about things at all. I didn't know the term agnostic. I thought an atheist was somebody that denied God. All the typical tropes. You already know, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you for creating this community, which I leaned on a lot just to get my bearings,
Yeah, Stan.
As a jumping off point. So
Jim and I didn't create this community, but I think we can both say we're very happy to be a part of it. At least I can speak for myself. I was in the same boat as you, Stan. I had no idea how to think properly. I had no idea of the real definition of these terms. And so it's cool to find other people and realize, oh, wait, there is a whole community talking about this and I've been missing out. So glad you're on board with us.
Great. So my topic for today is nihilism. I am in a perpetual state of questioning my existence, reality, whatever. It's just kind of where I live. I'm a deep thinker, overthinker, whatever.
Yeah.
But I wonder. So for me personally, I'm trying to find my way through, right? So I kind of had this existential crisis where I fell into a depression. Obviously, coming to the realization, no God and everything, what that entails. And I'm trying to find my way through. I cannot get past nihilism. So my next step is trying to find the optimistic side of it, which I am trying to do. It's kind of hard, but it's a battle. And I'm just wondering, should we embrace it and try to move from there? I don't know if you guys have any opinions on this.
I do. I have a lot of opinions on this. I have a lot of opinions. Okay. Because I went through the same boat and in some ways I still go through the same boat, right? Because when I was a Christian, I thought in my career I was going to work for Christian nonprofits. Ironically enough, I really did. I thought I was maybe going to do mission work. I thought my life was going to be centered around some form of doing Christian work. And so suddenly, when I lost that faith, right, I not only lost a belief system, I lost a sense of life purpose. So that was really hard to deal with. And this is another reason why people still believe, right? They can't afford not to believe because their sanity prevents them, right? Like this is how they get up in the morning. Some people will openly admit that. It's rough. So how do we deal with that? Well, first thing, Stan, and I mean this in the most sincere way possible, seek therapy. Seek therapy, seriously, because
I've done recently, just coming off like a year, which has helped me immensely.
Fantastic.
So like, I can't even talk to my family about things, like just the ability to have somebody that I can talk to openly and honestly about what's going through my head.
Absolutely.
Like you don't.
And here's
like so.
And let me,
maybe you do, but yeah.
That's great. But let me point this, because I put that out there as the first piece of advice, right? And some people will look at that and say, "Oh, well, isn't that evidence that atheism, causes mental illness or is the result of mental illness?" No. The reason why you go to therapy is because, exactly because of the reasons you said, right? We all need people to talk to about these things. And when you're a Christian, you can talk to pretty much whoever you want, even atheists, right? Because a lot of atheists, they just kind of have to, kind of be quiet on the issues sometimes because we live in a Christian majority country. But when you're an atheist, especially if you're alone in a place and you don't feel like you have the support system you need, that becomes draining on people. So like, I think, and again, I mean this in the most sincere way, the nihilism that you're feeling, part of that is feelings. Part of that is just feelings that you kind of have to work through. And it's stuff I have to still work through, honestly. So
if I can push back on that a little bit, I understand the feelings part, but just on a purely intellectual plane, I can't get past that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If you want to talk about the pure philosophy, okay, I don't think humans exist for any inherent purpose, right? So if that's your take on the situation, that's my take on the situation, right? How we deal with that, that's when nihilism turns into existentialism, which is how do we create life purposes for ourselves, right? For me, part of that is doing shows like this. Part of that is doing good in my career. Part of that is doing good in the relationships that I hold. And that's about as much as I can do as far as grand meaning. I don't know how you're coping, Stan, and I hope you're coping well, but I would suggest like these are the things that you can kind of deal with to cope with, because it really is just coping with the big empty, right? Because that's all we got.
So for me, I'm kind of at this place of optimistic nihilism where I'm trying to, I don't know if this is the right way, because obviously it's all a work in progress, but I'm trying to embrace the fact that things are meaningless. I know that, that's in our society, I know that's a horrible thing to say because I'm supposed to be optimistic and everything's great and I'm working towards my purpose, but I am not that person. And I'm trying to find and understand that, okay, let's presume life has no meaning, right? And the actions that I have, even actually in the long term, have no meaning. One day I'm going to die. Nobody's going to remember my name. And I'm trying to find the positive side in that. And one outcome has been I am less critical of my mistakes because of this realization that, hey, I made a mistake, but you know what? I'm going to forget about it next week. I try to remind myself, nobody's going to be talking about it. But I do have this kind of issue. I don't know if I want to call it an issue. It just kind of doesn't sit well with me that there's this tagline in the atheist community about I create my own purpose. And it doesn't sit well with me.
Doesn't convince you, huh?
Well, it doesn't convince me. I don't think it does anything for me. Like, I think it's meaningless to say that.
Okay.
It's essentially meaningless to say I create my own purpose, because when it's just like when somebody says, oh, God is everything. Well, now they just redefined God, right? Or they're creating their own sense of God. So when someone says, my purpose in life is to do this, there's an understanding that the way that they're using it, at least typically in society, that it is a given purpose, right? So when someone says, oh, I create my own purpose, have now then switch the definition of purpose to fit a different
No,
perspective.
I disagree with that entirely, 100%. Because purpose is there's nothing has intrinsic purpose, nothing has intrinsic meaning. But all that comes from us. That the purpose of something we say that a tree. Well, let me finish. We say a tree's purpose is to produce oxygen, right? We say that a hammer's purpose is to put nails in wood. We say that, and that's so. And we provide that meaning. So, and that's fine because that's the way it should be. We should be doing that. We shouldn't be allowing some fictional being from some badly written piece of fantasy novel determine for us what our purpose is. We should be doing that for ourselves. So that's not changing the usage of the word purpose or meaning. That's reappropriating it the way it should have been from the beginning. It should never have been purpose and meaning come from a God or come from something external to ourselves. Society can't determine what our purpose and meaning is. We have to. It's on us to do that. And that is really, really cool.
Right. So I understand all of that, right? I totally get that, we assign purpose, especially to something like a hammer, we design that too, right? My only pushback is, and I'm reiterating, if you're trying to have a conversation about God, right?
Yeah.
There is especially in Western culture and America, right? There is an implicit understanding there. And not fully, because everybody has nuance, but there is a typical understanding there. And when you say the same thing about purpose, there's also a typical understanding there. And I'm not saying that words have meanings, they have usages. I understand that fully. But I do think that in the same way that if someone says, do you believe in God? And I say no, and they say, oh, you don't believe in everything, or you don't believe in energy. I'm like, I didn't know that's what you meant. In the same way, when we try to use purpose, it can be kind of obfuscating the conversation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying, Stan.
Oh yeah,
I totally get it, because like when I first read Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus, I was working a dead end job, and the famous line from that book is, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Right? Sisyphus is this character that's pushing this rock up on a hill for all eternity, for no inherent reason, because he was punished by the gods. And when I first read that, I thought, this is stupid. This doesn't give me any comfort. This is just coping, right? Just coping with the situation. But then I kind of realized that's kind of the point, right? Like in the same way that religious people do use what you kind of described as like an explanation for their life purpose, they're coping with the reality of existentialism in the same way we are. They're just using it through religion, almost kind of like what folks like Soren Kierkegaard would do, right? Like we are doing the same thing when we say life gives us purpose, or we have to define our own purpose. That is us coping with the void, with the world, and we just have to accept that. I don't have any other way around that, right? Maybe that's one of the potential downsides of atheism, is that it's not as clear cut, right? But it does have the advantages, right? You do kind of figure out what values most to you, and you can create what I would call meaning from that. But it is complicated. It's not as a nice of an answer as I wish it could be.
Right. So what are your thoughts on just hypothetical situation? You say, oh, do you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. Well, then how do you have purpose? And instead of saying, oh, I create my own purpose, just saying there is no purpose. Like just coming to that admission, there is no purpose. And
because it's not true. Because it's not true.
No intrinsic purpose.
Make joy.
No intrinsic purpose.
Oh, I find my own joy. I create my own joy.
Yeah.
Like I
create my own joy.
These things.
That's a good way to put it. I would. Yeah. Well, I don't get asked too often, what's your purpose? Well, actually, that's not true. I probably get asked more than the average person because of the call-in show stuff. But like in my daily life, people aren't asking me, Dan, what's your purpose in life? But I guess if somebody came up to me on the street, I would say, I don't know that I have a purpose in life, but I do have things that find me joy. And I do think that there's a nobility in the sense of justice that I pursue, because I am passionate about that kind of stuff, and I do stuff because I think it impacts other people, and at the end of the day, all we have are people. So that gives me enough closure. But I guess what we're looking for here, Stan, is something that really gives us closure. And I don't know if that's something somebody else can answer for you. That might be something you have to find for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect to find that anytime soon. I do. I mean, it may be semantics or pedantic to have kind of an objection to that usage.
Yeah.
To me, it kind of sparks. So just for a quick background, like I was told that I was God. I fully expected to go into the ministry.
Yeah.
So when I hear that tagline, or even the word purpose, it just brings back a flood of like all the things I'm not going to be. And not that I want those things, but just kind of then I think about the security that I had and such like drive and direction I had prior to everything. And now that's gone. And I don't regret it at all. I kind of am learning to enjoy it, the freedom of it. But yeah, I guess
it's coping. It's coping. That's all it really is. I can't say, oh, here's the answer on a silver platter. It's no, we kind of have to just make do as humans. And that's scary and that's hard and that's nuanced and complicated. But in my opinion, it's a better life to live than to live in a fantasy or to live in a world that isn't actually helping people. I do think that we can actually help people through freeing ourselves and through, going through that period of deconstruction, from wherever your starting point is. Even if you started off not believing anything, still having moments of deconstruction and figuring out yourself and your life and your path. But anyway, sorry, Stan, we have to move on because we have a lot of other callers and I don't know how much time we have left here. So I wish you well in your journey in life. I hope we were able to give you some answers. And I like the name. It's a bit derivative, but it is what it is. So anyway, thank you, Stan. I appreciate your time. Jim, any thoughts on that before we move on?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've said all I need to say too. I just want to confirm with you guys that if you want to continue the discussion after the show, if you want to talk to me and Jim, you can join us in the ACD, which is our fan-run Discord server, at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. So please check that out. Jim and I are going to be hanging out. I usually can't make it on the Talk Heathen ones because I get busy on Sundays, but today I'm going to be there for a little bit. So please come talk to me and come talk to Jim. So we'll hang out with you. And also be sure to check out the newest episode of the ACA show, The Nonprofits, which is going to be live at 3 p.m. Central Time today, pretty much right after the airing of this show. That's tiny.cc/YTNP. So check that out if you haven't already. And now it's time to look at some other callers. We have other people who want to talk to us. Can we end it on a positive note here? I don't think we can. I really don't think we can. What I think we can at least have a good conversation. So let's talk to Dave. I want to talk to Dave calling in from Wisconsin. Dave, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up? Oh my, third time. Hello? Are you kidding me? Third time. It's Talk Heathen. I cannot believe
3 callers.
This is a deep tick that I have within me, apparently, that I cannot shake. I've done other Talk Heathen shows. What's up? I guess I haven't been on in a while. Anyway. Okay. So what's going on? Dave from Wisconsin, you're live with us.
If it makes you feel any better, I didn't notice, actually. I was kind of
okay. Well, I certainly did, and I guarantee you the comment section will. So I have to point it out. So,
I was prompted to call in today, because I'm procrastinating and I don't want to work on my taxes. And so I sat down and was listening to the first caller, and the words came up that I've been meaning to call into one of these shows to talk about. And that's, I feel it in my heart. And, after, it went round and round, and then it came to, I feel it in my heart.
Yep.
And it's that actual, I'll say, physiological sensation that people experience that I think is the basis of what faith is. It's because I used to be a route salesman, and I had a lot of Hindus and Sikhs and Muslim customers. And it was the same people I would see over and over again. So you'd talk about things. And from what I talked to them about is everybody, the basis of their faith was that feeling in your heart, that actual warm sensation. And it's pretty much the same thing as when you get a compliment from somebody you like or something really good happens. It's a warm sensation in your chest area. I mean, do you not feel that sometimes? Hello?
Not when it comes to God.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I definitely felt things when I was a Christian, but I wonder how much of that was me trying to force things because of social situations. I think that was probably the majority of it.
And that's the thing. I felt that I never really bought into the Christian thing, but I was raised Catholic, and there was God because where I grew up, there were Catholics and Lutherans, and I mean, it was obvious there was God. You feel it in your heart. You get told this, and my point here is that people that don't experience other cultures, it's hard to think about the fact that that's what you're feeling in your heart as a Christian, but your Christian God talking to you in your heart, and that feeling that you get, which gives you your faith, that's what everybody feels.
You're right.
That's
You're
what
right.
they all feel.
You're absolutely right.
Again, as the conversations go on and on, I'm a cancer survivor, so I spent kind of a lot of time in waiting rooms and then in little rooms getting various substances pumped into me, listening to these shows and listening to the arguments. And again, today I'm procrastinating because I don't want to do my taxes. And here we all are talking. So I thought I would talk in and bring up, so what about it? What neurological process is happening because of indoctrination, because of being indoctrinated from childhood to believe these things and then spending your whole life in a society that reinforces this indoctrination? What in your brain is happening to give you this actual this feeling, this actual physical sensation?
Well, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know if I could answer that. I think I know a little bit about sociology, and I do think that there is a group performance pressure that's involved, especially in religious organizations, especially within like high duty ones, ones where you are expected to, do a performance in some way, right? Where there's risk involved if you don't do that kind of performance. In Christianity's case, it can range anywhere from you'll look bad in front of your parents to you'll go to hell if you don't do this. So there's some mental factors that cause people to do things. It's the same reason why I used to wonder so much how people who say that they are possessed by demons, what's that whole thing about people convulsing on the floor and doing all this and that? But it's a performance. It's a kind of social play that humans who are very advanced at doing this kind of thing get involved in. And because of that, actually create that reality before our eyes. It's suddenly in that moment that person is being possessed by demons because look, they're performing the action that this kind of ritual that happens every Sunday at Pentecostal churches. So I think the same thing happens when you're in worship service or when you're with prayer with people or when you're reading the Bible. Once you get into that habit, you develop that ritual, and almost like Pavlov, I guess it can kind of occur. I think we kind of self-institutionalize that, but that's my guess. Again, I'm not an expert in any of the fields that I just overlapped in that explanation, but from my own anecdotal experience, I think that's what would make the most sense to me.
Well, again, I agree with all that, and again, my mostly anecdotal experience, it's like depending upon where you're from, that is that exact same feeling in your heart. But that's an aspect that I see rarely brought up in the conversations. That how much of the world have you actually seen?
I
guess is kind of what I wanted to call in about. And well, I was beginning to be suspicious also. I was like, because I hate to accuse you of underhandedness or anything, but I'm thinking Xeno's a plant anymore.
That call?
It's like,
we don't do plants on this show. Occasionally we've had people call in as pranks and stuff, but as far as Talk Heathen goes, I don't think there's ever been any plants.
No.
But
I'm being facetious, and I shouldn't be.
yeah. No, it's something that that
should
comes up
even-
every now and then. But
Right.
no, it's weird. I don't have any more to say about it. Jim, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One, brains are weird. I think that's really what it comes down to. They're capable. You're capable of convincing yourself of a whole bunch of things based on your own experience, because the brain fills in gaps on almost everything we sense anyway. So why wouldn't it continue to do so or think it's doing so on things that we don't necessarily perceive but think about, like talking to God? I mean, if somebody tells you that God will talk to you and you don't understand that you also have an inner monologue, that our brain talks to itself, you could assume that that voice was God. If you feel loved in the presence of your parents, then why wouldn't you assume that if there is a God, you wouldn't feel even more love from the God that is a being of love, right? And so your brain is convinced of that and can put itself into that quote unquote mental state. But it all comes down, I think, really to brains are weird. But this also goes into the reason why Dan and I said earlier that eyewitness testimony is some of the worst testimony we have, some of the worst evidence we have for almost anything. It's because our brains can convince us of all kinds of things that didn't happen. And other people can convince us of things that didn't happen. And we know that happens. So yeah, I think it comes down to brains are weird. And this is why you need to engage the brain as much as possible rather than engage the emotions for thinking. Engage emotions for a whole lot of things, but not for thinking.
Yep.
Well, I thank you for your time, gentlemen. Have a pleasant day.
All right.
Oh, well, thank you, Dave. Real quickly, we're getting towards the end of the show, but we want to try to get one more call on the line, so we're just going to jump straight into it. Okay, we want to talk to Jack, who is calling in from Texas. Jack, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up? I got it right that time.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how's it going?
How are you?
Doing okay. What's up?
Yeah, I'd like to expand on this ontological argument for God's existence, and particularly on basis of the definition. And I define atheism not as a fact that God does not exist, because God is nothing, and contradictorily a mental construct. So for atheists, properties of God are nothing. For God,
that's
nothing.
Interesting. As someone who uses the word atheist occasionally to identify myself, I wouldn't describe that way. I think it's weird that you would also make that presumption about atheists using it that way. Do you know any atheists that you can cite? Do you know atheists that you can cite that use that definition? Because I've never heard that. Have you heard that, Jim?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's my definition, as I said. And I come to that conclusion because if God doesn't exist, then there's nothing. Is that not true?
Well, we don't necessarily come to the conclusion that God doesn't exist. This is a very subtle distinction, right? Very subtle, and it's a very common misconception. The difference is we can't conclude that God exists. Doesn't mean that he doesn't exist. It means that we don't have enough evidence to believe in him. Do you see that there's a difference there? It's very subtle. It's very subtle.
Right. And your assumption and your statement actually sneaks in a claim that you need to make, which is that God exists, and God is two claims, really. One, that God exists, and two, that God is the reason for everything. Those are two separate claims you're smuggling in that you still need to demonstrate are true.
Well, I'm going to give you facts, not claims. So
you just gave us some claims, so give us some facts.
Give us some claims for sure. Definitely weren't facts. Definitions aren't facts. I don't know if you know that.
Well, definitions refer to facts because they refer to property.
Okay, but definitions are not facts. Right. You know this.
So give us your evidence.
Well, I said they refer to facts.
Okay, give us your evidence.
All right.
Do you want to define a human being as a cat? That's a definition. That's not factual.
Can you give us the evidence, please?
Okay, the evidence. I'm going to give you the evidence. Properties we experience, such as infinity, eternality, or the absolute, meaning not relative, are facts. And we experience them, such as in...
We do. We experience eternity.
The limits of the universe.
How do we experience eternity?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
How do we experience eternity?
Well, because we die. So it's
that would not be eternity.
Why not?
Because we die and we're done.
Death is eternal.
No,
doesn't that mean that everything that lives experiences eternity? Because eventually everything dies.
If I'm dead, I don't experience anything. So I'm not experiencing eternity.
That's true.
I didn't experience anything before I was born either. So,
well, the opposite of eternal is finite. Is that true?
That's definitionally, yes.
Fair enough,
that is true.
I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you experience finitude every day, right?
Yeah. I mean, I eat a meal and it's not there anymore. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, you're telling me that you don't understand the opposite of that?
Right, but like, how does
I don't understand infinity.
Yeah, like I've never had an infinite experience. Like, I don't know what that means.
Well, I didn't say you did, but
yes. Well, you said that, but when you did say that we experienced the infinite. I believe that was one of the facts, quote unquote, that you laid out. Right.
Right.
Okay. Let's do this. If you calculate pi,
where are we going? Why are we calculating pi?
Yes, pi, as far as we know and as far as we've been able to calculate, does not repeat itself and doesn't end. So what? It's a math is not the territory. Math is map of the territory.
I don't experience pi. I don't experience that. That doesn't,
I experienced tiramisu last night. That was good too.
Yeah.
But
if you were to sit there and divide it infinitely, you wouldn't understand that. You got to quit it sometimes.
But I don't.
So
that's the thing. That's why
I'm not experiencing infinity.
That's I mean, we don't experience that. So.
Oh, well, wait a minute. You understand death. You don't experience it.
We don't experience death. When we die, we lack the ability to experience.
Actually, so I mean, I've had the experience of people dying, and I've had the experience of pets dying, and I've had the experience of plants dying. So I do have some experience with death. I don't have any experience with me personally dying.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with anything?
Hang on. You haven't experienced death, but you understand it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't
what does
experience
that have to do with infinity.
I don't. No, wait. No. I disagree. I don't have experience with death. I've never experienced death. I see people have died. That doesn't mean I experience death. I can see people drive cars. That doesn't mean I have experience driving a car. You know?
No. I said you haven't experienced death, but you understand what death is.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, the lack of experiencing things.
Right? So you haven't experienced infinity, but you understand it.
No. Well, I don't, because I don't see. Here's my problem when you say understand infinity, because there is nothing infinite as far as we can tell. There's nothing infinite in the universe. The universe had a beginning. We call that beginning the Big Bang, and then it looks, and there are multiple hypotheses about what the end is going to be. So we don't have the experience of anything that is infinite.
Well,
so
I just looked it up, and it says, it's infinite. And
what does? What is?
Who? You looked it up.
The physicist. Yeah.
What physicist is saying the universe is infinite?
You just typed it into Google? What are you doing? What do you mean? I looked it up. what?
Is it a still living physicist, or are they still doing physics in 2022?
I don't know.
Well, now wait a minute. You understand death, but you haven't experienced it.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so all right.
Yes.
So what's your point about infinity?
Yeah.
Let's just jump the shark. We understand infinity. Okay.
Okay.
So what?
Well, let's move on. Let's move on.
So what?
And
yep.
Infinity is a property, right?
No.
It's not a value. It's a concept. But yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
I didn't say it was a value. I said a property.
It's not a property.
All right, fine. It's a property. Go ahead. Get to it.
Fine.
Okay. And the absolute is a property, isn't it?
Sure. It could be a property of something.
Relative. You understand
So what?
relativity, so you understand the absolute, which is its opposite.
Okay, keep going.
All right. Okay. And so these are properties that cannot be attributed to anyone here in space and time because we live in the relative. We live in the finite.
Okay. So what?
So the properties must be attributable to an entity beyond here.
Why?
Beyond this scope.
Why? Why can't they? Why aren't they just concepts that we keep in our head?
Well, then they're just nothing because you're.
But
yeah,
Jack,
that's kind of my point.
I've never experienced He-Man, Jack, but that doesn't mean just because I understand the concept. He-Man, like He-Man, Skeletor, like that. Okay, I've never experienced Pikachu, from Pokemon. Here's another example. Okay, but I understand the concept of Pikachu. He's a little electric mouse guy. So that doesn't mean he exists because I understand the
made up experience.
So what?
It's an artificial made up experience.
Yeah, see, my problem, one of the problems that I have is that infinite and absolute are both concepts. We have no idea if they actually exist. Well, absolute zero, I think we've gotten something close to it, but I don't know that we've gotten there yet. Yeah. So absolute in terms of temperature, but absolute, they're mathematical concepts. Yes, but that doesn't mean the opposite exists.
They all explained it to you perfectly.
Just because the finite exists does not automatically mean the infinite exists.
Why not?
You need to demonstrate that.
You have, well, sure, okay. You have paradigms, do you not? Such as
paradigms or concepts.
Quite simple.
Those are concepts.
No, they're not. You have a right hand and a left
paradigm.
Hand, not a concept.
That's a concept. What do you mean? Of course, that's a concept. Why
I have two hands that I call one my left hand and one my right hand is certainly a concept because left and right aren't real things. They're things that we have. They're concepts that we have attributed to the appropriate sides of our body. So yeah, they're concepts. Really? Yeah.
Yes.
You're confusing the map for the territory. The territory is that I have two hands, one on either side of my body. The map is that I have a left one and a right one. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see. Not really, because you do know the difference between right and left, and it shifts.
Yes, that's a concept.
Because it's a concept.
It's how I'm mapping the territory. It's the map I keep in my head as to what the actual territory is, to what the reality is. That's all a concept is.
Oh no, you express it every day when you drive because there's a line saying right and left.
Yes. Because we have the concept of right and left.
And I don't have to say left or right. I could say that you turn east at the intersection and not left at the intersection. The east and left could refer to the same thing. At another intersection, they can refer to completely opposite things. But if I'm talking about a particular intersection, the concept of left and east are relative to that intersection. The intersection is the territory. Left and east are the map in my head of how I express and describe that reality, that territory.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's a concept.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting them mixed up.
Up and down. Yeah,
up and down.
Left and how about
up and down?
Logical and illogical.
No, see here, up and down is really, really easy, right? Because if we get where there's no gravity, there's no up.
I think, Jack. Like it sounds like you have a problem with.
There's up and down.
Jack. It sounds like. See, no. Wait. It sounds like you have an issue with the word concept because you think concepts mean that it can't exist. Like existence and concepts are mutually exclusive, but they're not. Like a concept can exist. It just doesn't exist in a physical world in the same way that like I exist or a chair exists. Like, so that it's okay.
Concepts on we impose concepts, and it's imposed.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a concept of right and left, but there is a fact of right and left.
Okay.
Whatever you want. I don't care.
No, the right and left is not a territory. It's not a thing that we can that exists outside of our own concept.
Yeah, it's in our minds. It doesn't exist outside of our minds.
And it only exists because we have relatively symmetric bodies. If we had asymmetric bodies, left and right wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if there's just one side of you?
That's what I just said. If we had asymmetrical bodies, left and right would make no sense.
Okay, you've named it, but what if is there only one side of you?
On an asymmetrical body, yeah, that's the definition. That would be the definition of asymmetrical body. Yes.
Okay, so
a body that only has one arm or one leg on one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an asymmetrical body. One arm, one leg. In this case, yes. Just to keep it relative. The body form doesn't really make a difference, but yes. Left and right only makes sense on a symmetrical body that you can describe a left and right on. An asymmetrical body, it makes no sense.
And yeah, I think this is all the time we have for this call now, Jack. But conceptually, I think you should call in again. Right. Yeah. I would agree with that concept. Maybe we can talk about it a different time. Dropped. Yeah. I said, yep, what a concept. I could use a little fuel myself, and we could all use a little change. And with that, we have to start ending the show. So I want to thank everybody for watching today, and we are going to be going to the Discord after show. So check that out. Link is going to be in the description for that. Jim was hosting with me today. Jim, thanks so much for hosting with me.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, and I'm Objectively Dan. You can follow me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. We are almost at 5,000 followers on my Twitter account. So I would appreciate it if more people followed on that. This is Talk Heathen. This happens live every Sunday. So check it out live if you have not already. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. And please consider donating to our fundraiser if you haven't already. The link to that is on the YouTube channel. So thank you again to everybody that supports the show. And I need to give a quick thank you to the crew that help make this show happen every single week. Look at that crew, Cam and Cats. The Cats are important to the crew. They do the most critical tasks, which is to give emotional support to the crew, of course. And so we're going to be giving out some love rings here in just a second. But Jim, any final thoughts before we start to close out today's show?
That last call was definitely one of those fun ones where it's like you're trying to say that what we think is real and what we think is not necessarily real. It's real to us and it's in our heads, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a place out there that matches what we think.
Yeah, confusing the map with the territories. Well, right now, before we close things out, I need to send out those love rings. I don't always get to do this, so let's do it now. Boom! There's those love rings. It's like the cat meme. It's sending out the rings. Anyway, so thank you again, everybody who watches the show. Whether or not you believe, whether you're an essential worker, we want to thank you. Whether you work in the medical field or you're stocking shelves, thank you so much for putting your lives on the line for everyone else. If you don't believe, this is your community. You can reach us at Heathens at atheist-community.org. And you can plug into the fan Facebook groups or the ACD. And if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Have a great week, everybody. See you later. We want the truth. So watch Truth Wanted live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at
991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.